Decisions. Welcome to Decisions, lesson number 2. Today we're going to be talking about decisions, using several proverbs and diving into the Bible and seeing what the Bible can do to help shed some light on things, prompt some thinking. Now, by the way, even if someone doesn't believe in the Bible is still a great resource to prompt thinking. So even if, so if you're talking to family, you're talking to friends, I don't believe in that Bible stuff, that's okay. Because I'm a Christian. The Bible is the undisputed primary source material for Christianity. I am a Christian. Shouldn't be surprising that I would refer to the Christian book from time to time. At least I hope that wouldn't be too surprising. There's some interesting things to start you thinking, and even if you don't believe in the Bible, you have to admit there's some good lessons in there. There's some good things you can take out of it. No matter what you think about the book as a whole, whatever you think about bits and pieces of it, there's some good stuff in there too. And most people will agree with that. So this is Pastor Scott Conway at QXChurch. You can find us online at QXChurch.org, letter Q, letter X, church, CHURCH.org, O-R-G. Matthew 7, 1 through 3, that's a quick passage that reminds us, judge not lest you be judged. A deep understanding of how decisions are made, how people land where they land, helps us walk in with more understanding and less judgment. It allows us to be a light, not a judge. It allows us to help lead them to better decisions, helps lead them to better thinking, rather than judge them and condemn them for where they happen to be. This helps us realize that everyone's choice makes sense at some level. It may be dysfunctional. It may be unsophisticated. It may be incredibly immature, even childish or infantile. It may be flat out wrong, even perhaps evil. But at some level, in some way, shape, or form, there is a sense to it. And if we can enter into where that sense is for them, then we can be a light. Help them see it for what it is, and help guide them to better decisions, to their own better decisions. Not just to obedience to us, not just doing what we might advise, not just following our advice. Ultimately, in all leadership, in all guiding, all mentoring, all coaching, the goal is to lead someone into their own ability rather than have them rely on ours. To lead them into their own knowledge rather than have them just do what we tell them. To lead them into their own wisdom rather than have them only follow our advice. Ultimately, as with Christian faith, it needs to be their relationship with God. It needs to be their faith in Jesus Christ. They don't get in on ours. And just as they don't get in on our faith in Jesus Christ, they don't get in on our relationship with God. They don't live an elevated life because I read my Bible, because I pray. They have to walk it out themselves. And so part of how we go about that, understanding decisions, seeing how things work, understanding our own decisions so we can make better decisions. And then we can be an example, someone that they can follow. As Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. So always an example, never an excuse. Now let me repeat that again. This is important. Always an example, never an excuse. Always an example. That means you want the choices you make to be something someone else could model. Or to use the phrase that we most commonly use in class, especially with the kids, is copy, copy, copy. So what are the 3 things you do when you don't know what to do? They are copy, copy, copy. Look for someone who looks like they know what they're doing and follow that person. Copy that person. Do what that person's doing. Now this works if you were surrounded by examples. So we want to make sure that we are in the population we would call an example. Always an example, never an excuse. We want to be careful that we don't become the excuse excuse that somebody uses to make a bad decision, to do a bad thing. Now, sometimes, of course, we mess up. I mean, at least I mess up. I don't know. Maybe you don't mess up. It's possible I'm the only one in the room that has ever blown it. But for myself, I'll be honest. Sometimes I've made some really dumb decisions. In fact, we might even get into some of my really dumb choices as we kind of work our way through this particular lesson. What do you do when you're trying to be an example? Say, for instance, with your children, and they find out something that you did when you were in high school or you were in college. They find out what you were like back in those days. Some people like to just dismiss, well, those were my BC days. Other people say, well, I was just young and stupid. The young and stupid, by the way, is incredibly dangerous because the kids are young, and they think, oh, young and stupid makes it okay. Well, I happen to be young, so it's okay for me to do stupid. Now, I tell people, young is mandatory. Stupid is optional. You can skip stupid. It's my recommendation. You might change your mind when you kind of think about things and think, hey, maybe stupid would be a good idea. But I don't really think so. I think you're smarter than that. Young is mandatory. Stupid is optional. Some people do, like I said, the BC days. Well, one of the challenges that we have a lot of times, we actually don't know 100% where our children's faith is. A stunning percentage of Christian youth, once they hit that age of emancipation, sometimes turning 18 or finishing high school, whenever they get to decide for themselves whether or not they're going to continue in their faith, a stunning number, I think it's over 80%, leave the church. They walk out on their faith. And so then suddenly those were my before Christ days, takes on a whole different meaning because now they're in their post-Christ days. And if that was what made it okay, made it understandable, well, we've inadvertently, without meaning to, given them permission. So always an example, never an excuse. So what do? Well, part of it is you do talk about it like it's a bad thing. The worst example I saw is there was a father. Word was out, his kids knew, that the siblings in his father's household growing up just tortured each other. And unfortunately, the dad talked about, the thing we used to do to your uncle, those were fun. Well, you're taking some of your worst behavior that you do not want your children to copy, and you're talking about it like it's a good thing. One of the ways you do the example, when you want a good example, is you leave it as a warning. It's like, I regret this. This was terrible. At the time, we thought it seemed like it was fun, but now looking at it, being more grown up, being more wise, having a clue. I mean, that's the kind of thing that kids do when you have no clue. You really don't get it. And then when you're older and now you do get it, you realize how absolutely incredibly just crazy it was to do something like that. And then if there were any negative consequences to the bad behavior, make sure you underline those, you underscore those, so that people know. It's like, yes, not only do I regret it, not only was it crazy, stupid, something that just leaves you with regret for the rest of your life. I shouldn't have done that. But it is also something that did this damage. It damaged our relationship. It damaged our community. We were never on the same team. We were always in competition with each other. It destroyed all kinds of harmony and connection and love that our family could have had if only we had been mature enough and insightful enough and just knew enough to realize that's just crazy to behave that way. And by using even your bad example as a warning, then that can also be an example. It's like, I don't want you to end up where I ended up. A warning means, do not do what I did, or you may end up where I ended up. And part of that is with this regret, with this realization of how incredibly immature I was being, how incredibly clueless I was being. And so into this whole mix, we want to be the example, never the excuse. And if we're the bad example, then we need to be the warning. Never an example that anyone's going to be prompted to want to follow. And in order to be the example, we need to make better decisions. And fortunately, we can make better decisions. And by understanding some of these principles, not only can we make better decisions, but we can help our friends, our family, our direct reports, our supervisors, our colleagues, our fellow club members of whatever group or organization we're in, our fellow team members of whatever groups we work with, to also make better decisions by being an example and being able to explain the example you're being. So let's look at a verse here. We already glanced at Matthew 7, 1 through 3 about judgment, talking about decision making. Proverbs 14, 12. So Proverbs, if you're looking for that in your Bible, it's after Psalms. Psalms is kind of in the middle-ish of your Bible, and so depending upon how your Bible is formatted, you go back to the middle of your Bible. After Psalms, you'll have Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. There is a way that seems right to a man. That means someone's thought about it. They've looked at it. They've thought it through, whatever level they've thought it through, and they've decided this looks like the thing to do. But its end is the way of death. Its end is the way of death, which pretty much means way didn't work out. That it killed something. So principle, some decisions will not be good for us. Now building on the principle in here, some of the assumptions that we can make is that the person thinks they're making a good decision. They think they're being smart. Maybe they think they're being shrewd. Maybe they think it's good business. Maybe the only problem they have is they're just not really thinking it through. And an application here is to make decisions from an elevated, expanded level. So in the whole spirit, soul, body model, sometimes in the moment, if you make an emotional decision, it feels right. This is what you want. It feels good. Having this thing feels good. Doing this thing feels good. How could something wrong feel so right? And all of these justifications to our emotions we make, it could be something like that. And the fairly simple solution is, all right, well, take that out from there, step it up a level. Let's look at this logically. Logically, let's look at it. If you were to come in and you really didn't care, what would logic tell you? Now, for some people, that's difficult to do. Now, the assumption is, of course, a way that seems right to a man. So that means at this emotional level, they already think they're right. They don't want to entertain even the possibility that they're wrong because they want what they want and they want it. So there we go. So what do? Well, you can tell them to step it up logically. You can decide to step it up logically, but if your emotions really desire a thing, what your logic will almost always do is rationalize. That you will come up with rational lies to justify why you should be able to have what you want. So here's part of what you do. Part of what you do, what maybe you can help other people do. Suppose someone else showed up and they had a very logical argument against the decision you're making. Suppose they had their top 10 logical arguments against the choice you're making. What do you suppose would be one of their top 3? If someone disagreed with you and they disagreed with you logically, what would one of their top 3 arguments be against the choice you're making? And if you really think about that, try to imagine someone that you know that tends to be very logical. Try to imagine someone you know that might disagree with your decision. Maybe it might be a mother or a father, a mentor, a professor, a coach, an instructor somewhere. A friend that tends to be very logical. Even someone you might even consider cynical. And if they were going to come at you with logic to explain to you why this is a bad decision, don't do this, what would they probably say? And assume they've got their top 10. Tell me something you think might be in their top 3. So if I'm making an emotional decision, what would some of the most powerful logical arguments be by someone who disagrees with my choice? Now here's one of the tricks to do this right. Don't argue with it. Because what we tend to do is say, well, they might say something like, A, but the problem with that is, and you start to dismiss them as you go. You don't do that. What we're going to do is we're going to stack the decisions. Stack the logic. Stack why they would be against you. Say, okay, well, we'll deal with all of them together. What would be something else you think might be in their top 3? And you come up with what that might be. You don't argue with it yet. You're just finding out what would they say. If they were going to write me an email, if they were going to send me a letter, if they were going to make a list that they intend to come sit down and talk to me about it, what would they write? Which means I don't get to argue with it while they're writing it. I'm just trying to figure out what would they say. So what else might be in their top 3? Now we have maybe their top 3. What else might they say if they have a top 10? And what else? And what else? And what else? What else might they expect me to think through, even if I think I have? And what level of logical argument not would satisfy me emotionally, but what level of logical discussion, presentation of the counterpoint would satisfy that logical person? So if Commander Spock is talking to you, the Vulcan has arrived and has said, excuse me, I believe that your decision is illogical. It's fascinating, but it's illogical. Can you please explain to me how you are accounting for the following 10 points? What would satisfy the Vulcan? What would satisfy the computer? What would satisfy the automaton, the calculator? And that when you can develop those answers, not thinking, well, I am arguing my side, but what would satisfy the logical person, then you're probably, not necessarily, but probably going to be doing a pretty good job of thinking it through logically. So there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. Some decisions will not be good for us. Now, sometimes we did think it through logically. Sometimes we did think it through cause and effect. And logically, this is the right move. Logically, but it might not morally be the right move. It might be damaging to people. So you can elevate this to the others level. You can elevate this to the principle level. Elevate to the religious level, your relationship with God level. As you elevate, as you expand, a basic fundamental of the golden rule. A basic fundamental of the golden rule is if you were on the other side of this decision, how would you feel about it? You know how you feel on your side, how would you feel on the other side? You know the logic on your side, what would the logic be on the other side? You know what choice you want to make on your side. If the other side was fully informed, what choice might they make? At the level of others, how does this affect people? If this is the way things were being done, what would be the repercussions? At the level of principles, cause and effect. Principles, the way things work. Principles, right and wrong, philosophy. If this is the way of things, and very often if you do something that you might feel is logically good for you or in your own personal interest, and think, okay, if everybody did that, if that really is the way the world worked, what that might mean is I'm going to be on the receiving end of this almost every time, and the doing end of this only rarely. So for instance, on cheating someone, cheating a customer. Well, I'm a customer at a lot of places. There's a lot of places I go, and if I have to claim, well, it's okay to cheat customers just a little bit, well then I'm saying that it's okay for all of my vendors, every store I go to, every gas station I go to, every business I frequent to cheat me, so long as it's just a little. And I would disagree. And being okay, well, in which case, yeah, maybe that doesn't really work. There is a way that seems right to a man. That means you thought it through. You felt your way through. You considered it. But its end is the way of death. And one of the things to keep in mind here, even for a good person, even for a moral person, a righteous person, a saint of God that walks out their faith in integrity, is that there's a way that seems right to a man. But its end is the way of death. Sometimes you can be doing the thing you honestly believe is most right. You've walked it up. You've had your emotion about it. You've thought about it logically. You've looked at the quality of your decisions. You've thought about others. You've considered the principles and the philosophy. You've taken it to your religious faith and your independent individual relationship with God Almighty. And you made a decision that you honestly believe is the best decision, the most righteous decision, the holiest decision, and even that could end in death. The death of a relationship, perhaps. Damage to your parenting, to your marriage. I mean, someone could walk through all of this and ultimately conclude, the Bible says, wives, submit to your husband. I just need to put my wife in her place. And you might honestly believe that that's all in harmony. And you know what? You could destroy your marital relationship. And if you destroy your marital relationship, there's a very good chance in that process you could destroy your marital status as well. There could be things you could be thinking through and trying to impose upon your children and stir in them a heart filled with rebellion, waiting, chafing, trying to get out, and the moment they have a chance, ready to flee from you, perhaps, from God, also, perhaps. So even when you're walking it out in faith and righteousness, we have to watch out. Sometimes there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. Sometimes it has nothing to do with anything we did. We didn't do anything wrong. Everything we did was right. Everything we did was righteous. But its end is the way of death. How does that happen? Because sometimes there's missing pieces. Sometimes we didn't do a piece. Maybe we didn't know. But there was more we had to do, and we didn't do it. Now, if we get physical, talk about your physical body. Could you have a deficiency in your health, something that you're not giving your body, without realizing you're building up this deficiency? Yeah, people do it all the time. People have nutritional deficiencies all the time. You get nutritional toxicity, where you're eating stuff that's bad for you, but some people also get deficiencies where you're not getting everything you need to maintain good health. And eventually, over time, stuff breaks down. Or maybe you're doing physical exercise. Physical exercise is good for you. Godliness is better. Physical exercise is good for you as a temporary benefit. But if you are moving incorrectly, over the course of time, you could be doing damage to your knees, damage to your lower back, damage to your neck, damage to your shoulders, all sorts of ways that you could be doing what you believe is right. And you don't know that you're missing pieces. You don't know that this right thing you're doing, maybe you're just going about it in a subtly wrong way. And over time, its end is the way of death. In business, you could be doing everything righteous in business. And if you are missing a critical piece that is necessary for the functioning of your business, if you don't know marketing, and this is where I come in, I am clueless about marketing. I am learning this stuff in the martial arts realm. I'm an 8th degree black belt master. In the realm of marketing, I'm need substantial lessons to reach white belt. I mean, I am a rank beginner in this, but you know what? If you don't know how to market your business, it doesn't matter how good you are if people don't even know you're there. You could open the best restaurant in town, and if nobody knows how to even find you, if they don't even know you exist, doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to have anyone coming in to find out how good you are. You could run a monster dojo. Awesome lessons, powerful stuff, but if you don't know how to reach the community so that they are aware of you, so they have any idea what it is you provide, doesn't really matter. You're still going to go out of business. Well, but I'm so good at what I do. You build a better mousetrap and the world will be the path to your door. Not if they don't know there's a better mousetrap there. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. Sometimes you're just missing stuff. You're not doing anything that's wrong. There's just some pieces of it you just don't know about. Some things you're doing incorrectly. Some things you're just not doing that you need to be doing. So Proverbs 14:12. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. And the biggest thing I want you to remember in this is that proverb is talking about the way that seems right. And it could be the people who rationalize. It could be the people who justify. It could be the people that really think that, well, I want what I want, so it's right that I should have it because I want it, and it's wrong that I shouldn't have it because I want it. It is talking about that. But it's also talking about people who really, sincerely, honestly believe they're making a good decision. That they're doing what's right. That they're doing what's righteous and holy. And it seems right when they look at it. At the end of that path is death. So here's one last comment on that before we move on. Keep an eye on where you're going. Keep an eye on where you're going. Pay attention to the outcomes, because things work the way they work. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. And if you pay attention to the outcome and you realize you are walking on the path that is the way of death, that if you keep doing this, you are going to lose your job. If you keep doing this, you are going to lose your business. If you keep doing this, you're going to lose your relationship. You're going to lose your children. You need to pay attention and then go back and look, okay, that way that seemed right, and maybe it still does seem right. But if you can see that you're on the path to the way of death, for whatever it is, get off the path. Make a better quality decision. Proverbs 19:21. Proverbs 19:21, many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. Many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. Proverbs 19, verse 21. Now, we teach something around here called the Genesis 1:1 principle. The Genesis 1:1 principle basically quotes Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That basically means God built a system. God, who is infinite in his intelligence, infinite in his wisdom, who has perfect love. God, who has all power. So he can design the system, he can build the system. He is the designer and the engineer. He decides what it's going to be, and he makes it the way he chooses. So that means the whole system works the way it works. And this is our core derivation from the Genesis 1:1 principle. And many are the plans in the mind of man, but it's the purpose of the Lord that will stand, is that things work the way things work. Things work the way things work. For instance, let's take a fairly simple, straightforward technological example. So if I head down to the airport, I'm going to see all these massive hunks of steel. And these giant steel contraptions weigh tons. Not only do these giant steel contraptions weigh tons, but then we're going to stick a whole bunch of people in them that weigh more tons. And somehow, these giant, heavy steel contraptions actually fly. Now think about how amazing that is. Think how amazing it is that we figured out how to do that. And then reflect on how amazing it is the system was designed and engineered so that the math exists so that we can make these planes. The physics exists so these planes can fly. And these rules don't change. We call that a Genesis 1:1 principle. Things work the way they work. Now think about the history of flight. Think about all the things mankind tried to do in an attempt to fly. And you can see sometimes some black and white reels of various and sundry attempts of this and that and whatnot, and some of them ended in disaster. Some of them kind of worked out. And we kind of figured out a few ways to do this. I mean, we got the whole aerodynamics thing of we got lift and thrust and all of that. We've got helicopters that basically just beats down the air and just shoves the air down so hard and so fast that the thing it's attached to lifts up into the sky. We've got lighter than aircraft, where we figure out, okay, well, something is actually lighter than the air around it. If we heat up the air on the inside, then heat rises. Figured out hydrogen, which Hindenburg kind of told us that maybe we might want to reconsider the hydrogen. And then helium, which doesn't blow up like hydrogen. That seemed to work for us a lot better. And all these different ways of doing lighter than aircraft, beating down the air, taking advantage of lift and thrust and the way air moves around. The purpose of the Lord will stand. Physics will stand. Principles will stand. It is the way it is. Certain things are going to work the way they work, period, because that's the way they were built. And if you are a Christian, if you trust the designer, if you trust the engineer, then that means that you ought to have some faith in his design, some faith in his engineering. And when you see stuff happening, you kind of pause, okay, things work the way they work. Now, things work the way they work, whether you believe in God or not. People will ultimately have faith in the fact that things work. They will have faith in the physics God created, even if they don't even believe the God who created it exists. That's the way technology works. Science is the uncovering of all these rules God made. Technology is the application of our understanding of those rules. Things work the way things work. So when you see stuff happening, no matter what it is, you go, okay, if that's happening for a reason. What's the reason? What's the cause behind the effect? And if the effect you're seeing in any way, shape, or form appears to be the way of death, just discussed, you know, okay, things work the way they work. God built the system. I know him. I trust him. I have every reason to believe that God would have built a system that will allow his children to win. How do I win from here? Is there still a win? What am I missing? What do I need to add in? What am I doing incorrectly that maybe I need to change? What am I doing that ought not be done? I just need to stop. Many are the plans in the mind of man, but if it doesn't work that way, if that's not the way the physics of it works, if that's not the way the relational physics work, if that's not the way you build a marriage, if that's not the way you build physical health, if that's not the way you get a job, if that's not the way you build a business, things work the way things work. The application here is to use sophisticated, insightful, long-range wisdom. Very often you can solve a lot of these problems just by paying attention. Pay attention to the effects of causes set in motion. Pay attention to the causes being set in motion. And as you understand cause and effect, you begin to make some sense of these things. Mention marketing before. Some people are brilliant at marketing. They don't deliver, but they're brilliant at marketing. Boy, can they get customers walking in that door. Boy, can they get customers clicking on their link online. Boy, can they get customers placing orders and having stuff shipped to them. But the stuff is garbage. Well, that's immoral. Over the course of time even, that's going to come back and bite you. There's one particular man who's been kind of famous in certain circles, made literally millions upon millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. Some of the stuff he's produced has had incredible value in the marketplace. The people who've gotten his product have been very excited about it. On the other hand, though, sometimes he overmarkets, he underdelivers, he makes all these lofty promises, all these grandiose statements. And that's really not the way it works. And he's been out of business again and again. And ultimately was charged with federal crimes. Engaged in a settlement with the federal government that basically boiled down to you will not lie or exaggerate any of your claims anymore, period. And then guess what he did? In one of his next big marketing campaigns, he did what the federal government determined was a violation of that agreement, to which he tried to defend. Well, I was only stating an opinion. He said, well, you stated your opinion as something you knew wasn't actually true. It doesn't match the product you're delivering. So he got arrested again. Things work the way things work. Might have seemed like a good idea in the marketing. The numbers of the orders probably reflected the great marketing. But his product didn't deliver. And ultimately, that has now come back to bite him. Not only did it bite him many, many times in the past, where he was out of business, out of business, out of business, out of business, but now it's at the criminal level. Pretty serious stuff. Things work the way things work. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God designed the system. God designed these principles and built them into his creation. Even understanding there would be entropy. Even understanding there would be sin. Even understanding that we are going to blow it and things are going to break. And yet look at how incredibly it all works. Even in the way things break, there is such consistency that you can almost predict the life of things based upon how it's being treated. Some things break down slowly. If you're running and you're running with bad posture, your knees will give way slowly. Your lower back will give way slowly. If you're disrespectful and judgmental in your relationship, you won't destroy your relationship in one argument, but you will tear at it slowly. That means you have time to fix it. Now, sometimes there's acute stuff. Sometimes something goes so wrong, so hard, so fast, one time, boom, it's over. Fall off a tall enough building. It's not going to be like jogging wrong. It could just be over. So that does happen too. That's also cause and effect. That also tells us things work the way things work. There are some things that are so destructive. We need to be careful about those things. We need to put up some guardrails. We need to do stuff to make sure that we don't fall off this cliff. We need to do some stuff sometimes to make sure we don't make that lethal decision. And then also sometimes things work the way things work, and it just happens. There's accidents. Other people have put causes into motion the effect of which we might pay a price. Back to some of that nutrition stuff I had mentioned. There could be other people that put stuff in the food supply. Maybe they know, maybe they don't know. And we're consuming it. And if it's bad for you, if it'll make you sick, does the one who put it in get sick, or is the one who eats it get sick? The eater gets sick. Sometimes we pay a price for someone else's caused that emotion. Someone throws a punch and hits me in the nose, and I get a bloody nose. It's not that I'm standing around giving myself a bloody nose, that someone else, for the cause of emotion, clenched fist flying up my nose, hit my nose, the effect was now I got a bloody nose. I didn't throw the punch, and maybe there was nothing I could do to even get out of the way. A lot like growing up in a household. There's nothing the children can do to not be in the way of the parents. Whatever the parents are going to do, good stuff, bad stuff. Kids can't leave. There's a limited amount of thing a child can do to get out of the way. Business, your job, your career. Limited amount of opportunity to go get other jobs sometimes. Sometimes you can get what's called the golden handcuffs. You hate where you are, but you can't match the pay anywhere else, and you need the money. So you're handcuffed to the job. That happens too. Things work the way things work. And if we understand things work the way things work, we can also understand there's got to be a way to win. Now, why would I think there's got to be a way to win? Because I know God built the system. Even if human beings have come along and they kind of try to build their own system, there's still God's system somewhere in play in here. No matter how human beings have tried to game it, there's got to be a way to win. Because God built the system. Now, honestly, you can be trapped. The way to win might have already passed you. That does happen sometimes. There's a way to stay healthy, but sometimes you're so unhealthy, there's no way to get back. That does happen. Sometimes the repercussions of something that ripple down even the generations can't be undone. But the question still is, where's my win from here? From right here. I can't go back and undo yesterday. I can't go back and undo last year. I can't undo my parents' generation. I can't undo the founding of my country. I can't undo the last 2,000 years of human history. But I can start right here, right now, knowing things work the way they work. My God designed this system. And because God is part of this design, there's got to be a way to win from right here. Now, might I get the big prize? Maybe not. But what I say sometimes is just get better. Better is good. Better is winning. And I like winning. And if you just assume that God has built into the system in every given place some way to win, some way for things to be better, even if as much better as can possibly be mustered in the moment is to come at it with a better attitude. To be stuck in a concentration camp, death looming around the corner at any moment, and to find value in it. What you're going to do with this experience later. How to develop that inner world, so no matter what's going on around you. And for those to whom this story may seem familiar, we're talking about Viktor Frankl, who lived in a concentration camp, ultimately escaped. Use sophisticated wisdom. Think it through at a sophisticated level. Be insightful. Really look at it. Dive into the depths of the principles and the philosophies. Dive into the depths of the hows and the whys. Think long range. Think through generations even. Maybe there's nothing you can do as an individual right now beyond that inner world. But is there anything here that you might even just be a drop in that ocean, but without all of those drops, there is no ocean, and you might only be one of those, but you can help make it better so generations from now, it doesn't have to be the same. Use sophisticated, insightful, long-range wisdom. Proverbs 16, verse 9. So back up to Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9. The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Now remember, we're still talking a lot about the Genesis 1:1 principle. The Genesis 1:1, God designed a system. God engineered a system. And not only did he design a system, he designed a system that included a heck of a lot of people that weren't going to much care about him, that were going to believe in all these not God entities. We're even going to reject a creator in favor of mathematical randomness. And yet the system still needs to work with a whole bunch of people that don't care about the creator of the system. The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Here's your principle. Cosmic habit force normalizes our consistent choices. Now, cosmic habit force is a term I lifted straight out of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and the rest of his writing. Basically, what he's talking about is once things get going, it gets to be a habit. That there's principles at work here. And so when I'm talking cosmic habit force normalizes our consistent choices, what I'm talking about here is willpower. Willpower. I will stick to what is right no matter what I feel. And if I use willpower, I will stick to what is right no matter what I feel, then I will stick to what is right, that particular right thing. The first time I struggle with it might be so hard. After I've overcome, maybe by sheer force of will, 2, 3, 4 times, it starts to get a little bit easier. If I just hang on and I keep going with a proper attitude, I pour all of myself into it, after a few weeks it might start to seem kind of easy. I might feel like I'm not fighting with it so much anymore. After about 6 months, this could be my new normal. It gets to be a habit that just is there. And after a couple of years, I would have to actually actively work to undo that habit because I've so well established it that that's just normal. And it's so normal, I would have to actually get derailed somehow because it gets to be like I am on rails. Cosmic habit force, building the habit, beginning by choice, an act of will that says, I choose to do this. I will put this in my routine. I will take on this new activity. I will extinguish that old behavior. Now, there's all kinds of tools and techniques you can use to allow this to flow much more naturally. But so much of life just boils down to choices. So much of habit creation just boils down to choices. If you decide you want fitness, you choose then to put some element of a fitness routine in your regular schedule. And you make the rest of your schedule orbit around that. You may have a whole bunch of your schedule that's already established and you're okay. I want to be fit. I'm going to do one type of workout or another 3 days a week, 5 days a week, maybe all 7 days a week. Whatever it is for you. Say, this will now be the new central thing that my flexible part of my day will orbit around. Period. And then you make it a habit. After a while, it becomes such a habit, that you don't think about it anymore. Of course you do this. I mean, how many of us wake up in the morning and go, do I really want to brush my teeth this morning? So, I know I'm supposed to, but I just get so tired of it. And showering, putting on clothes, and putting my socks on my feet instead of my hands. That's so... I mean, we don't do that. We just create a habit. We develop a routine. We can almost do it absent-mindedly. Sometimes so absent-mindedly that we get interrupted, we might not quite know what we're doing because it's just all one automatic chunk. And so when you develop habits, you start off with willpower and then you build into cosmic habit force. Normalizes your choices. So practice powerful behaviors to create powerful habits. Practice powerful behaviors to create powerful habits. And if you are struggling with things, if you're having, say, things from your past are getting in your way, your emotions are getting in your way, remember, things work the way things work. There's tools that can take care of those things. And there are plenty of people, including me, who have a pretty substantial toolbox and can help you with a lot of these things. Now we're going to slip forward to the New Testament to wrap up. Matthew 7:13. Matthew 7:13. Enter by the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. And those who enter by it are many. Now this is generally used talking about salvation, but here's some more principles that you can pull out of this. One principle is few things work. Many things do not. Few things work. Many things do not. Application. Do the few things that work. Now, we learned this in school. How many right answers are there? Well, for your math, chances are there's only one right answer. If you're in English, you're writing an essay, there's an infinite number of right ways to do a good quality essay. Doesn't have to be particular words in a particular sequence with particular sentences, and everyone has to be exactly the same, or else you're going to get an F. It's all kinds of variation. But there's infinitely more wrong ways to do it. Few things work, many things do not. Do the few things that work. Find out what those things are, because things work the way things work. When you find out how things work, use willpower to do those things until it becomes a habit to do those few things that work. Another principle. Naturally easy things are often destructive. Naturally easy things are often destructive. You just kind of go with the flow. You do what you feel like doing. You just kind of follow your heart, your impulses. Sometimes that'll lead you to a good place. Sometimes that'll lead you to a terrible place. The naturally easy things are often destructive. The path of least resistance often leads to a bad place. The naturally easy things, even when they aren't destructive, are rarely as constructive as the disciplined thing. Application: self-discipline toward a do the right thing character. Self-discipline toward a do the right thing character. Now I'm going to split this right thing in two. Do the right thing. That's the moral, ethical, legal thing. Most of us will understand that if I say, you just need to do the right thing. Good. Moral, legal, ethical. People get that. The other part of do the right thing is do the thing that actually works. Do it correctly. Do the cause that produces the effect. Use the process that produces the result. I'm teaching martial arts. We have a form called Guardian 1. If I tell you, do it right. Now, do I mean do the form morally? Do the form legally? Do the form ethically? No, we're using the word right, do the right thing, in the correctness sense. So self-discipline toward a do the right thing character. So that you develop the character that not only seeks the moral and the ethical and the legal, but a character that also seeks out the way things work. To use willpower, that I will stick to what is right. And in this particular sense, I will stick to what is correct. What actually works, no matter what I feel, until cosmic habit force takes it over, and that just becomes a natural way you do things. So decisions. The more we understand decisions, the less judgmental we are likely to be. In business, the lifeblood of business is money. Don't have any money, you don't have any business. No matter the quality of the product you produce, the quality of the service you provide, if you have no money, you have no business. There's only so long you can last, and basically it's until the money runs out. The money's got to come from somewhere. There's a lot of things that have to go into that being able to happen. A lot of right things that you're going to have to do. And I will tell you, I have historically been lousy at this. Now I'm still in business, so I have that part going for me. But if I can look at my business life, and I can see how broken that has become, as far as its survival and its health and its well-being, when that's so objective. It's money. Money's math. It's business. It's marketing. It's advertising. It's all these very concrete things that have books, webinars, seminars, all these lessons available for an outcome I would love to produce. And yet I land, business-wise, in this terrible place. So should it surprise me, since I don't have any, emotional commitment that, well, I have to do it this way and, destroy my business, that when people are fueled by desire, by wants, by needs, from things that go back to their childhood, that they would also make decisions that might land them in a bad place. That's not nearly as clean and objective as mine, but if I can't fix clean, objective, mathematical, should I be at all surprised if someone else struggles with that deeply messy, deep, dark heart stuff? Shouldn't surprise me at all if I can come into their life and be a light, not a judge. Just as someone could come into my life and be a light, not a judge. Maybe all of us can get to a better place in whatever it is we individually are working on. Thank you.